How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Perfect Reload Weekly. My name is Steve. This is where we take a look back at the week in video game news. I'm off, not even getting the intro right, out of order, all out of sorts. You take a week off, and this is what happens. But yeah, we are back after the week off. I went out of town last week to the lovely city of Saugus, Massachusetts. And had a good time, and just, wasn't in the cards to get the show done with all the driving I had to do. It was 13 hours of driving in a 24-hour period. I mean, it was all in one day, so it was a lot of driving. Very tired, but well worth it. I am joined, as always, by Christian Slater. Christian, you had a week off, man. How did you enjoy it? Did you get up to anything good, man?
Well, thank you for asking. I spent my week high off my ass on battery acid. I became one with nature until I woke up hanging upside down from the side of a Denny's. Thanks for cutting me down.
Not a problem, man. It's not my first rodeo with you. I think I'm on speed dial at that Denny's at this point. But yeah, so taking the week off meant that the news piled up, so we got plenty to get into. But I also had the opportunity to play a bunch of games. This is probably the most, the highest amount of games we're going to discuss in a single episode ever. So yeah, there's that going. But yeah, it's been a lot. The one thing I want to touch upon is I'm not going to get into the Gamescom stuff outside of those, stupid jackasses that rushed the stage. Jeff Keighley's got to get some better security, man. Todd Howard did not look thrilled being on stage after that happening, especially, this is the second time it's happened at one of Keighley's events, so they got to do better on that. You can't put people's safety at risk, especially his own. He can't put his own safety at risk. But Gamescom didn't really have any huge announcements or anything, so I didn't cover the show. I didn't have time. I watched it after the fact, and there just really wasn't. It was a lot of games that we already knew about, and the games that I wasn't familiar with, not something I'm super interested in. So that kind of explains why there's gonna be a lack of Gamescom talk this week. But there were plenty of games out to talk about. I don't really have these in any particular order. I guess we'll start with, I would say, probably the biggest release, sort of, mainstream wise, not so much, but for most video game, more, I don't know, the hardcore gamers out there, the lethal gamers. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon came out. So I remember playing the original Armored Core on the PS1. I believe it was a PS1 game. I remember renting it. I didn't really keep up with the series. I want to say I played one of the ones on the PS2 and fell off pretty hard after that. But, the mech genre was something I was kind of always interested in. I remember playing MechWarrior on the PC, playing Mech Assault. Even dabbled a little bit with, I'm drawing a blank now, the game that came with the whole Steel Battalion that had the whole controller and everything. You gotta appreciate a controller that has a dedicated windshield wiper button. But I wasn't really quite sure what to expect with Armored Core 6. The studio From Software, obviously these days better known for, the Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Elden Ring, all that stuff. That, especially that style of game. They got out in front of that real quick by telling everybody, hey, if you're expecting this to be Armored Souls and not Armored Core, you are going to be very disappointed. So I certainly didn't anticipate that going in. To be completely honest, if that's what this was going to be, I probably wouldn't end up playing it because those games really aren't for me. I guess my main issue with Armored Core is, while I didn't expect them to go whole hog with the Souls formula, especially since they said they were going to do it, I did expect some type of evolution to the series. And what we have is a game that really hasn't learned anything. You would expect that they would take at least some of the lessons they learned about making a very successful game from the games that they have been working on lately and apply it to this. But this is a very much stuck 20 years ago kind of game. The story is, there's a story, I guess. It's kind of non-existent. All of the story is played out via audio logs, not even with the visual flair of the codex from Metal Gear Solid. There's no like person's face on the screen. You know, you have like a waveform, and sometimes like a company's logo will be up there. But they talk about these companies so often that it's hard to kind of keep tracking them, except for in the last mission I did, the mission before was like, oh, we really love what you're doing. We're happy to have you. And then the very next mission, they're like, we screwed you over. Sorry. And it was just like, really? Like, it was just a lot of disconnect there. I don't know if that comes from the ability to play missions out of order, but so far I haven't had the ability to play more than 2 different missions, you know, as my choice. So if that's the case, and that's kind of bizarre, I would have just preferred you just dole me out one mission at a time if that's the case. Some missions are certainly longer than others. There were a couple of missions that were done in 5-6 minutes that I did. I was very surprised. But it really is rinse repeat. There has been no variety to the game so far. I'm not super far into it. Put a couple hours into it. It just came out. Usually I record on Sunday. I'm actually recording on Saturday night. So it just came out yesterday. So I haven't had that much time to put into it, but, it's, you know, you're just reading subtitles and listening to people talk. You're a silent, protagonist, which I don't really like. It's just, the whole thing just comes across very boring. And it got to the point where I was like, this isn't necessarily the kind of game that I want to put on mute in order to watch something else and take my attention away from the games. You really do need to be paying attention to this game. It's not like a sports game where you can kind of zone out and kind of multitask with your eyes back and forth, you know, paying attention to stuff. But all the exposition is played out as radio logs. A lot of it happens during the missions, but you're moving around so much, and there are explosions nonstop and gun noises and missiles going off and all this stuff. And you get these people talking to you, and sometimes it's just like kind of like our audio barks, like, hey, we did it. Good job. Like, oh, I'm proud to fight with you, brother. Like that kind of stuff. And then sometimes it's like this woman talking, going on for like seemingly minutes at a time. It's like, yeah, back in 20 years ago, this company screwed over this company, and then this company got mad, and this company bought mechs, and now they're fighting over here, but not on this map, but over on the other map. Remember when we were on that other map? Yeah, they were over there. They don't like those people, but they're okay with these people here. But I don't know, these people, I don't know if I like them. They're pretty good, right? And you're just like, what the fuck? Like, I'm trying to dodge a giant helicopter, and you're talking about whatever the fuck over here. And it's just, it's so bizarre that this is the decision that they went with. And it's, I don't want to say it's like ruining the game for me, but I do feel like at some point soon, I'm going to have to make a choice with this game. Do I just kind of stop playing it, or do I just start playing it on mute, ignore the story entirely, and go about my day catching up on podcasts with this? And eventually is what ended up happening with Diablo, because Diablo 4 story, jeez, just checked out of that so fast. It was so generic, and it got to be so boring and just so rife with trope after trope after. It's just like, you know, stories like this aren't setting video games back or anything like that, but it's just like, come on, guys, let's put a little bit more effort into this. You know, it's not like From Software is hurting for cash. You know, we could have gotten some cutscenes in this thing, or at the very least hire one of their very fantastic artists to render some people's faces or something. You know, I don't know. But kind of getting all those negatives out of the way, the actual gameplay, like once you actually like get into your core, your AC, and out onto the various battlefields, the game does play great. It's running very smooth. I'm playing the PC version. It's another one of those things I brought it up. If you watch my Fort Solis video, and maybe I'll touch upon it when I talk about that game later. It was odd, just coincidence, I guess, 2 games releasing in the same week, having the same kind of odd feature, but they were for Armored Core and for Fort Solis, playing on PC, I always go in to make sure I have the right monitor, right screen resolution, all that stuff, and check my video quality and all that. And for Armored Core, it defaulted to high, not max. I didn't want to push it. I'm pretty sure my system could handle it. This game isn't that graphically powerful, but maybe there's some stuff under the hood that would cause some slowdown. But it wanted to cap the frame rate by default. It defaulted to a 60 frame a second cap, and Fort Solis was the same way. And it's like, I don't know, maybe that's like a growing trend now of games that aren't super optimized for PC. And like, this is our kind of compromise here, is to just like tell you up front, like, hey, we default it to cap the frame rate, and maybe that's for a reason. I honestly don't know. I eventually did turn off that frame rate cap for Armored Core and was in the, I don't know, 90 to 100 frames a second, maybe even more than that, and didn't have any issues whatsoever. But I did keep the graphic settings set where they were. I didn't increase them or anything. I think the game looks fine. You know, it's, I don't want to say it looks dated, but there's definitely some like, when buildings fall apart, you know, they kind of fall apart in these like big chunked sections, like I don't want this to seem derogatory, but very much like a PS2 game would have. You know, it's not, things aren't crumbling with, you know, the kind of the level of animation of destruction that even like a game years ago, Uncharted 3 or Uncharted 2 had on the PS3. So it's a little odd there. But I think the explosions look great, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of like electrical effects, and I was using like a plasma rifle, and that looked pretty cool. It looked like a big kind of like, you know, blaster shot from Star Wars going across the screen. You know, it's got a nice design to it. I think the mechs look good. There's a lot of customization for your mech. After every kind of what you can kind of suss out what are like the big important missions and what aren't. After every one of kind of like the bigger ones, you unlock a lot of parts. I would say within the first hour of the game, you unlock at least multiple alternate options for every part of your mech, except for a couple like your boosts, like to go like faster. You know, there's only like one for you to buy. But I'm at the point now where for my weapon systems, I've probably got 7 or 8 options for both arms and both shoulders. So I'm really happy with not only just the way my mech looks, because the design system is so great. You can change individual colors. They have preset color patterns. You can save custom colors and custom preset patterns. They have pattern designs. So a lot of them are like camo, but they also have some goofier ones like flames and stuff like that. You can change the weathering effect, like how rusted or worn down the metal on your mech is. You can make the paint matte or glossy or somewhere in between. There's a lot of tweaking you could do. I spent a good, you know, it's not like I got lost in it, but I spent a good 20, 25 minutes kind of screwing around with paint colors and all that stuff, making my guy look cool. So there's a lot of fun to be had with that. So, you know, I listed off a lot of negatives up front. I don't think that that's to say that it's like a bad game or anything like that. I think maybe I just expected a little bit more out of it, especially with From Software learning a lot of lessons as they went along. You know, they kind of streamlined some of the stuff with Elden Ring, and it propelled it to be their biggest game and one of the biggest games of the past 5-6 years. And, you know, won a ton of Game of the Year awards last year. And you would think that maybe they would take some of those things that, you know, especially from like the story stuff, you know, I know people really get into the lore of those games, and to not just have it be these audio log dumps in this game, it's just very, very odd, very bizarre, but I'm enjoying it. You know, we have a lot of games still to come out this year, so I don't know how much further I'm going to get into it. But it's, you know, even if I don't finish it this year, I assume at some point I'm going to put more time into it, because I am enjoying it for what it is. But let's move on to a game I already covered on the channel. We streamed it before I went out of town, and that was the Mortal Kombat 1 online beta. This was the beta for those that pre-ordered. And I really enjoyed what I played. I didn't get to play a ton of it, simply because of the timing of when it came out. But I really did enjoy what I got to experience with it. Christian, you were kind of watching me play a little bit of it. You got any thoughts? You familiar at all with Mortal Kombat?
Yo, this game is violent. There's guts flying everywhere, dragons made out of fire eating dudes. It's like a junior high school kid's notebook doodles come to life.
Yeah, I mean, it is over the top. So, you know, this is like a big year for fighting games. You know, this game looks like it's shaping up to be really solid. Street Fighter 6 was very, very good. I am having a harder time getting the hang of Mortal Kombat than I did with Street Fighter 6, but granted, I had a limited amount of time to play. Wasn't necessarily playing as the characters that I anticipate I'll probably be playing with when the game comes out. I got housed online. If you watch the footage back, I'm not great at fighting games anymore. It's been a long time since I was competitive or could hold my own, but I still enjoy playing them. I think for me, I have kind of resigned myself to the fact that, I'm never going to be competitive at fighting games again. And I'm okay with that simply because now fighting games are putting a lot of emphasis on the single player portion of their games. And Mortal Kombat's been doing this for a while. Street Fighter 6 really kind of did it for the first time this year. I really enjoyed what they did with that World Tour mode. And I'm very much looking forward to the Mortal Kombat story mode. It also looks like, I saw it out there somewhere. I didn't get a chance to read the full article, but it looks like there is kind of like an alternate game mode in there that looks like an RPG. Like there's a full-fledged RPG mode. And they've done kind of some bizarre stuff like that over the years. So I'm kind of curious about what that is. But I think that Mortal Kombat's going to be very much a game that I am playing the single player portions of and, getting through the story mode. So when it comes out, we'll check it out, obviously, when it comes out. Maybe we'll stream it. Maybe I'll just do a pre-recorded video, but at the very least, we'll check out both the single player and the final version of the multiplayer and kind of go from there. But, I don't think there's going to be another opportunity for anybody to play the game before it comes out. It's coming out in a little bit less than a month. I think it's maybe the third week of September. So, if you're interested, you can watch my footage certainly to see somebody that's not good at the game, but maybe check out some of the higher level gameplay that's out there, people that are a little bit more familiar with it. So you can kind of see some of the possibilities. The combos are ridiculous. There are some really impressive stuff that people are doing. It's a very juggle heavy game, getting people worked into, you're sitting there with your hands off the controller, twiddling your thumbs for 10, 15 seconds while you're just getting pounded on, that kind of stuff. But visually, I was super impressed. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It's a new engine for them. And I think the animation is super solid. I think the effects look great. It's a very colorful game, very bright. There's one character, I forget her name, but I played with her a little bit in the video I put up, where she has a lot of like fireworks based animation surrounding her attacks, and that stuff looks super smooth. It looked really, really nice. It's I think it's gonna be a visual treat for sure. And fatalities, limited as we saw them, and limited in the fact that there's only a handful of characters in the beta to play with, but it looks like they are certainly as over the top as they have ever been. So I think it's going to be a really solid entry into the franchise. All right, let's roll on here to Wrestlequest, another game that we put some footage up on the channel. I haven't gotten a chance to play more of it since I played the portion of the game that I played on the channel, so I won't rehash my thoughts too much. I don't know if I expected more. I don't think that that's fair to say. I think that this game is pretty much what I expected it to be. I think that it's got a little bit of a slow-paced start. I think the story is kind of in stop and go, that kind of thing. All of a sudden you're playing as different characters for a portion, and then you ultimately switch back. Kind of where I left off, the story was starting to pick up. They put a lot of emphasis in the marketing for the game of all the licensed wrestlers that they have, both wrestlers that have passed away and current wrestlers. Or not necessarily current wrestlers, because it's a very much like a Legends focused thing, but wrestlers are still around, and active in the wrestling world. You don't really interact that much in the beginning of the game. There's a couple of cutscenes where you see them, but there's not that much. We ran into like the Nasty Boys out in the open world as you were walking around. It's just like one dialogue per character. You can walk up to them, press the A button to interact. They spit out, a line, and that's it. I certainly didn't expect this to be like all voice acted or anything. RPGs of this style were not necessarily like that back in the day, so I didn't expect that. But it's I think it's just a tough sell right now, not just because there's so many games out that this is getting lost in the shuffle, but just for people that want to play a turn-based RPG that's in the retro style is a difficult sell, because Sea of Stars is about to come out, and Sea of Stars is going to be on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. It's the first game that's coming out on both on the same day, so it's kind of hard to not get that game for free, or at least not. I always hate saying for free when you're doing this, but at no additional financial cost for those of you that already subscribe to those services. And that game is like super polished and looks really, really good. It's coming out in just a couple of days. And I don't know if I'll have time to play it this week because I have some stuff I need to get done for the channel before Starfield. But I will play the full version of that game, in the near future. So it's just kind of a tough thing. And I feel weird about it with Wrestlequest because it's such a specific game that touches such a specific niche of a niche of a niche. People that grew up playing those RPGs, which I did. It has timing-based mechanics like my all-time favorite game, Mario RPG. It's about wrestling. I love wrestling. It's not only that, all the characters are action figures. I collect action figures, like I collect wrestling figures. So it's like, man, this should be like number one with a bullet, Steve's game. And it's just, I don't know. It's just tough to get into right now. I think it's going to be a game that I'd like to say I'm going to get back to it, but I honestly don't know if I'm going to. Is kind of the way it's looking. Maybe at some point. But it's really tough when I really look at what's coming out and what I need to get done through the rest of the year. It's tough to fit that in. I'm at the point where, I take this YouTube channel fairly seriously, and I do play games for myself, like Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't recorded any footage of it. I didn't record any footage of Armored Core, and I probably won't because the game is very difficult, and I don't want to just film myself struggling against it. That's just not fun. I'm not the kind of person that wants to just like make a video of me like raging about a game, being frustrated that I can't beat whatever objective. So I am still playing stuff for myself, but it really is kind of to the point, where it's like, if I'm playing a game, I kind of got to play it for the channel, and I can't really repeat a lot of stuff unless it really, really gets its hooks in, I've been, since the summer, I have finished less and less. And that's one of those things where I am a little bit worried about as we're getting closer to the end of the year. Like, I got to start actually finishing some of these games. And I just don't know if Wrestlequest is going to make it on that, but it is an enjoyable game. If you are a diehard wrestling fan like I am, especially if you're a wrestling action figure collector, I think it's something that's probably going to be a good experience for you. Just, it's not the most polished RPG. It's not, the writing isn't super great. The music isn't super memorable. But it's not bad. It's not a bad game. It's just a tough sell right now. But yeah, all right. Fort Solis is up next. We put a video up, played through the entire first chapter of the game. That's up on the channel. I did have to edit that video a little bit because I had to do a lot of backtracking because I missed things. It would have been like an hour and 45 minutes at that point, and nobody's going to sit through and watch that. So I edited it down to just shy of an hour, cut out some of the backtracking and whatnot, because I definitely got lost. It's not a super big area that you're walking around in that space station. They kind of cordon you off a little bit, but there's some very easy to miss things. I just, was interacting with computers and just didn't look at every single possibility, when I was going through, and just kind of missed some stuff. But it's interesting because if you watch the video, there's a lot of hiccups, performance-wise, graphics-wise, and I was a little concerned that maybe it was my PC, and then I didn't read a lot of the coverage about the game when it was coming out. I looked at some reviews briefly. I didn't want to spoil anything, because I did hear it's a very short game, and apparently it is. I ended up having to look up how to get somewhere on YouTube because there weren't any walkthroughs available, and there was a complete game playthrough that was under 3 hours. I was like, oh, okay, this game isn't that long. Apparently it's only 4 chapters, and we did the whole first chapter on the video. So it doesn't appear to be super long, but as I've listened to my regular gaming podcasts and people that are playing it, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, this game is only made by 10 people, and apparently the PC version is kind of messed up. Apparently the PS5 version is pretty okay, but I guess it wasn't just me and it wasn't my PC that the PC port of the game is just not running well, which sucks. A lot of people seem to be down on the game. I mentioned it in the video where I think it's fine. Maybe it just doesn't go anywhere. Maybe you'll end up being disappointed in the long run. I don't know. With this game being so short, I am going to finish this. I am going to carve out the time to finish this game, at least before the end of the year. It's a walking simulator. So if you've played stuff like Gone Home, or maybe Tacoma's a better analog with it also taking place in space. A couple of quick time events here and there to unlock things, but it's mostly just kind of an adventure game. It's very slow paced. There's no run button. You're kind of just, the only time you really run or pick up the pace are in cutscenes, where you don't have any direct control over the character. But I enjoy it. It's got really strong voice acting talent. Not Roger Moore, that's James Bond. Wait, is his name Roger Moore? Hang on. Roger Clark. Yeah, I didn't think so. Roger Clark, who voiced Arthur in Red Dead 2, and Troy Baker, who's voiced 900 video game characters, but probably best known for his portrayal of Joel in The Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2. Very, very strong voice work. There's a woman in the game as well, Julianne Brown. I wish I could remember. She's kind of like the, not the voice in your head, but she is just in a different part. You kind of go your separate ways to investigate something. And so she's kind of just feeding you information, or not even really feeding you information. You're kind of just having casual conversation with her, which is actually kind of nice, because you would, realistically, you would do that. You wouldn't want to be going through this abandoned, mining colony by yourself. You'd be talking to your friend, your coworker, so I didn't mind that at all. They're not overly talky. They make some jokes, some, bad puns and that kind of stuff. It's fairly well written, well acted. I wish it didn't have the performance issues, because it does kind of drag it down a little bit, but it didn't stop me from playing the game or completing any objectives or anything like that. It just kind of made me question, the settings that I had, going on. It does have DLSS and NVIDIA Reflex and all that stuff. And in the video, I was like, I don't know what the hell NVIDIA Reflex is. And then afterwards I looked it up and I was like, oh, I totally know what NVIDIA Reflex is. And I should have left it turned on. But it's just, I don't know, it's a little sad. So I guess if you're interested in checking it out, it sounds like at this point, until they issue any updates or fixes or anything like that, then you probably should go with the console version. And it is only available on PS5. It is not currently on the Xbox platforms. So it's cool. I don't know if I necessarily call it horror. There are definitely some horror elements to it. They do a lot of slow burn tension building, so maybe it's a little bit more of a thriller, that kind of thing. But I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the game. So maybe over the next few weeks or however, I'll bring it up again. As I am, like I said, I'm going to try and finish it. All right, let's move on to a very disappointing game, and one that I am not surprised is disappointing, because it's been disappointing for some time now, and that is Madden 24. Man, I have played very little Madden over the past few years. I'm a big sports fan, but football is kind of like last on my list. In terms of sports that I like. I've been watching a little bit more of it over the past couple of years, because, I know people that like football, and, it's nice to be in the conversation. So I've been paying attention a little bit more. I watched it a lot when I was a kid, but as an adult, I just kind of fell off. I'm more of a basketball, baseball guy. So I haven't bought Madden on day one in a while, and I would buy it every year, except for during the reign of NFL 2K, where I was an NFL 2K purchaser, and then, went back to Madden. But yeah, I'd say probably about 6 years ago, somewhere in that range is kind of when I stopped buying it every year. Especially when they started putting it on the EA Access thing, and you could just wait a year and get last year's version on available via Game Pass. So like I would play just the previous year's version instead. I did play quite a bit. I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Maybe it was Madden 21 or maybe Madden 20. I actually put quite a bit of time in it. My biggest problem is that compared to other sports games, NBA 2K is really the gold standard for bells and whistles. They obviously are really trying to push their microtransaction stuff on you, and they're, connected to the internet stuff, and they're blind box purchasing stuff, and so does Madden, but at least NBA understands that there are people that don't interact with all that stuff and want a good single player game, and they have an incredible franchise mode, and Madden just doesn't have any of this stuff, which should be standard at this point. I thought graphically it had some weird hangups. There were like replays that didn't trigger. The game had a lot of slowdown. It feels very stiff to play. The gameplay, when it's working and you're not running into bugs, can be fun to play. I played a handful of full games, but the game is incredibly basic. It's very bare bones. It doesn't feel unfinished. It does feel like a finished game, but it just feels like they just don't care anymore. They know they're going to get your money. They know you're going to spend the money on the Ultimate Team stuff, which is their kind of like Magic the Gathering booster pack, purchasing stuff. That they just don't really care about the actual playing of the game anymore. People just kind of keep coming back to it. People complain about it, but it doesn't stop them from buying it, unfortunately. It still sells really well. And, it's just the other sports games that are out there are lapping them. Even EA's own games, the only other thing they make these days is hockey. And the last time I played one of the NHL games, it was way more polished than this was. This was really embarrassing. I thought the Madden this year is being very, very embarrassing. It's very bad. Animations look incomplete. You're barely touching people when you tackle them. Sometimes the tackles look okay. Like, I sacked the quarterback a couple of times and it looked pretty good, but it also looked exactly like it did in Madden 5 years ago. And that's not great. You really do kind of want your games to evolve and all that. They added some new stuff with the passing game where there's some like timing based passing you can do to kind of lead a receiver, a lob pass, a regular pass, a bullet pass to really fire it in there. And then it adds an element to it, for sure. But it's just not enough. There's no way on earth I'm going to buy this game because I was playing through, if you have Game Pass, you get a 10-hour trial. And I was like, well, 10 hours is certainly enough for me to form somewhat of an opinion of this game. And boy, I had an opinion formed pretty damn quick once I got about 10 minutes into the game and everything was going haywire and graphics were all over the place and just popping on the sidelines. I was like, oh my God, like this game is a disaster. So my 10-hour trial is far from up. I think I probably put about 4 hours in. But yeah, they're certainly not spending money on this thing. Like absolutely no way. And that's tough because like football season is about to start. And, it's kind of the time where your brain gets that itch to play. But at the same time, we're, a month and a half away from basketball season and NBA comes out in 2 weeks. And I'm just going to buy NBA and go right back to playing NBA. I put like 200 hours into the show this year. I put like 150 hours into NBA 2K last year. They've been kind of like drip feeding new features for the next iteration of NBA 2K, which is about to come out. And it's got me excited. And I think it's, once again, I'm going to put a ton of time into it because I just love playing those games. They're great playing sports games, and Madden just isn't. Christian, you have I don't know why you would, but are you a football fan? Do you have any thoughts about Madden?
I figure I make the best out of a bad situation with my new body. I could try out to become a jumbotron at a football stadium.
Hey man, there are people on Instagram. Gary V's always talking about passive income. That could be your passive income, I guess. Go for it, man. All right, still got a few more to talk about. Boy, I played a lot of games. Touch upon Baldur's Gate 3 a little bit. I have gotten a chance to play a little bit more of it. Not as much as I would have liked. Probably put another couple hours in. The game is just so massive. There's no way on earth I'm going to have this thing even close to like a quarter of the way done anytime soon. I wish I had more time to play it, but I think this game is going to come in really handy during any type of lulls that come up along the way. I am going to have to kind of play enough of it where I can start to like qualify it into Game of the Year stuff in a few months. So I'd like to put at least, I know this isn't much for a game that is hundreds of hours, but I need to put at least another 10 to 15 hours in, get around that 20-hour mark so I can really have an informed opinion of like, if I had the time to play this game, like, and I played that much more of it, where would it rank? But at the same time, I keep hearing like, the first act is real strong, but it tails off after that. So it's like, can I say this is one of the best games of the year, knowing that potentially I'm a few hours away from the game, maybe taking a nosedive in quality? I don't know. That's a tough one. I think I'm just going to do my game of the year based on like how much I enjoy what I played, not necessarily knowing that maybe it doesn't stay as good further into the game. Just say like, out of what I played, did I enjoy it more than game X or game Y, that kind of thing. So maybe that'll be the justification for it. But I am really liking it. I like the way that I can play it the way I want to play it. I can talk my way out of situations. When I get into combat, my personal character is not super strong at combat. I don't have a lot of offensive maneuvers, but I did make sure I have a few, but I have a solid team around me that can kind of do the heavy lifting, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really, really enjoying it. And the last two we'll touch upon, 30XX. I don't have much to say. I do have a video up. You can check it out. It's another Mega Man clone, but it has that roguelite shell wrapped around it. In a different year with less games coming out, I would want to play it more. I could definitely see myself like really diving into it because it does play really well. It's a very smooth playing game. But right now, it's not enough to hold my attention, and the competition is too tough. And Mr. Run and Jump. Mr. Run and Jump is going to end up being probably the game that I wish I had more time to play. I'm really, really enjoying it. I have the video up on the channel, so if you want to check that out. I really, really like it. Also, like, huge shout out to the devs of that game. They saw my video, and that's super cool. When the devs get a chance to check your stuff out and hear that they're happy that you like the game. Same thing happened with the CEO of the company that put out Fort Solis. It was awesome. I really appreciate that stuff. I'm glad that I can cover some of these lesser known games, because even though they're smaller games, they're not smaller games to me, because games are all about how much enjoyment you get. It's not about how much money you spend on them. It's not about how long the game is. It's not about the budget of the game. It's just how much did you enjoy playing the game. I really enjoy playing Mr. Run and Jump. It's gonna be a little tough, competition wise with everything else that's going on. It's kind of the running theme of all these games we played over the past couple of weeks. But it really is, that's what it is. You only have so much time to play stuff. And this year is a fucking all timer, man. This is one of my favorite years ever since playing video games. I've been playing video games for like over 30 years now. And this is one of my favorite years ever. It has been so, so good. I'm actually really kind of hoping that next year is just need to step off the gas a little bit next year. Maybe I can play some of the stuff that I didn't get a chance to finish this year. I would really appreciate that video game industry. If you could just do that for me personally, that'd be a big help. I would really enjoy that. But yeah, Mr. Run and Jump is great. If you like Celeste, if you like Super Meat Boy, I think you'll find yourself right at home with this. It's very challenging. It can be very punishing at times, but it's very rewarding when you get it right. Those jumps don't need to be super, super precise as maybe some of the stuff in Super Meat Boy, because you had a lot of those obstacles like the buzzsaws and all that stuff. But you do need to have a level of finesse with everything with this game. But yeah, really, really, really strong, and kind of cool to see Atari putting out something, that's really good. But that's actually going to wrap it up for all the games. Got through a lot of games. But yeah, we'll be back in just a moment with, got some new stuff to talk about. Some stuff has been happening. So be back in just a second with the news. All right, we are back with the news, and we're going to have a follow-up to something we talked about previously. So the Embracer Group, which has been buying up developers and publishers left and right for several years now, announced recently that they had a $2 billion deal fall through, and that's left them in some financial, maybe dire straits. Well, it got revealed that the $2 billion deal was with Saudi Arabia, who has been buying up stuff left and right in the world of video games, sports, everything. So it was not surprising, but I guess maybe a little bit out of left field. I think some people thought, maybe it's Microsoft or, somebody else, Amazon, maybe, but no, it was Saudi Arabia.
Be very careful with what you say about Saudi Arabia. I have several business deals hanging on by a thread with this series of sheiks. Don't blow this for me, loser, because I'm only 20 human skulls away from sealing the deal.
All right. Well, that explains a lot of the phone calls we've been getting at night. But yeah, so this story comes from Ethan Gatchett, Kotaku. It says, Embracer Group, the Swedish holding company that's been buying up everything from Borderlands creator Gearbox Entertainment to the rights to the Lord of the Rings, saw its stock plummet earlier this year when a mystery $2 billion deal collapsed last minute. Axios discovered that it was not Microsoft or Sony. It was the Savvy Games Group, which is the controversial Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. So the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund kind of operates under different names to invest in things, not least conspicuous about them, the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, because it doesn't sound so shady, right? It's a public investment fund, right? You know, they were the people that essentially own golf now. Like, they pretty much bought the entire sport of golf. So, you know, I don't know what's going to really happen out of this with Embracer. They have been going such a large spending spree for so long. And it seems like they were really hoping that this money was going to come through, because it seems like they needed it to maybe get through to wherever they were needing to get to. I don't know if they were maybe trying to make another acquisition, or maybe some of the games that they put out didn't do well and they needed to recoup some costs. But it does not seem great. It should also be known that this is not the first time that they have worked with the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund. They did get $1 billion for them last year. We don't know why they pulled out. We don't really know the details of it, but, you know, it's an interesting thing. You know, Saudi Arabia is really, you know, they are really trying to get into everything. Like I said, you know, they purchased up a lot of stuff with golf. They were like rumored to purchase the WWE before Endeavor ended up buying them. You know, they're trying to get into video games. They are really trying to, wash over the image that they have of killing journalists and, you know, things happening with blood money over there and a lot of the human rights violations that happen in that country. There was a really, really good piece on HBO's Real Sports about them purchasing the PGA Tour and, you know, basically saying like it's sports washing. They are trying to erase their bad public image by doing all of these things and using these fun names like Savvy Games Group. You know, it's a lot better than, you know, Dagger Through the Heart because you wrote the truth in a newspaper LLC. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I guess, you know, we'll keep you updated on the inner workings of Saudi Arabia's video game interests. All right, next up, something that's really not surprising, you know, with all the games that got announced, you know, is bound to have, you know, a game or two here and there get delayed. And Alan Wake 2 is getting delayed, but not by much, just a little bit, 10 days. So the game originally was going to come out on October 17th, but now it is coming out on October 27th, which I actually think is a better day for them anyways. This is kind of the big horror spooky game of the year, and it's coming out very close to Halloween. People are going to be in the mood to play a game like that. I think it works really well for them to push back a little bit, especially with Halloween being on a Tuesday. You know, this game comes out the previous Friday. You got that whole essentially Halloween weekend to enjoy it, you know, with all the trappings of horror movies being edited for television playing and all that good stuff. So I think it works. You know, there's been other movement within the month of October. Assassin's Creed Mirage also got pushed forward to October 5th. But October's releases, this is coming from the article on VGC. So just in the month of October, Detective Pikachu Returns, Forza Motorsport, Lords of the Fallen, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, City Skylines, Alone in the Dark, Total War Pharaoh, Assassin's Creed Mirage, and Alan Wake 2. So that's a lot, especially October 20th. That's Mario Bros. Wonder and Spider-Man 2, two of the biggest games of the year. It's Sony's biggest release of the year and Nintendo's arguably second biggest release of the year behind Zelda. So it is a packed month, which is really surprising because November is very light. It's Call of Duty and maybe one other thing. So I was kind of surprised that nobody really kind of pushed things out a little bit to November to just try and not have to compete with everybody's gaming dollars. You know, you only have so much money to go around. So you know, I think it's a smart move for them. I think it's probably going to allow more people to play it and you know, just get into that Halloween spirit. You know. Next up on our list is actually a pretty big news story, and that is that the Xbox 360 store is going to go away. It's going to end next year, July 29th, 2024 to be specific. This refers to the ability to buy games and whatever else through the Xbox 360 console and to buy from the 360 marketplace site. So this covers games and DLC. So yes, you would not be able to buy your horse armor anymore. So, you know, you better get that if you want. The bigger issue with all of this is there are a lot of games on the Xbox 360 marketplace that did not get physical releases and they have not since been ported to newer systems. And some of the games did not get PC ports that you can readily get. So that's a pretty big shame. There was a number out there for how many games this is going to affect, that there are no other ways to purchase them. I want to say it was a little bit shy of 200 games. If you're a little bit younger and you don't quite remember the power that was the Xbox 360's digital marketplace, you really had to be there, because it was for the first time, like, you could buy a couple of things digitally on the original Xbox, but this was the first time where you could just log into your system, get DLC, it would download, and then boom, it was just there. It was the first time we were really getting the words microtransactions and learning what that was going to be. And not only that, for the DLC side of things and additional content and expansions and all that, but for games, like full-fledged games. The Summer of Arcade, that was a big deal because it was a very limited amount of games, and Microsoft did kind of put the marketing muscle behind them to hype them up. That was a really, really big thing. You would wait to hear, like, man, where are the games that, the Summer Arcade games going to be? And, like, sometimes there were stuff that you were kind of like so on, but they would do such a good job marketing. It's like, fuck, I'll just buy it. I don't want to be out of the conversation. And some games were absolutely fantastic. I wasn't playing a ton during the PS3 360 kind of era. Those systems came out, I want to say I was in high school when they came out. When did the Xbox 360 release date? Was that 06? 05, 2005. So yeah, I was a sophomore in high school in 2005. So my high school days, pretty much from the ages of like 13 to like 20 and maybe even a little bit past, I would say probably around 2005 to 2011, video games were not a super big priority in my life. So I missed out a lot, but I had a 360 and I had a PS3, and I did play a lot of the biggest games of that time. I fell in love with stuff like Gears of War, Uncharted, Last of Us, all that. But video games definitely took a backseat for at least the first part of those consoles' lifespans. It wasn't until a little bit later that I was getting a little bit more involved. Like 2010, it started to pick up. In 2011, it really ramped up. 2011 is when I started working at a video game store. You're just engulfed in it, so I was playing more than ever at that time. But those teenage years, I just had, like I said, I had other priorities. I was playing music. I was in bands. I was going to band practice or playing out live or whatever it may be. I was in like 4 different bands as part of the school, and so that was like, music was really kind of like the dominant thing in my life during that time. So I would play video games, but definitely not a top priority during that time. So I missed out on a lot of that stuff, but I do have I don't necessarily say I have a lot of nostalgia for the 360 itself, but I have a lot of nostalgia for that time frame of really the first exposure of indie games being very easily and readily accessible. Just being able to go to the store and buy your physical Microsoft cards and scratching them off and typing in those 30-digit codes or whatever they were. Still to this day, the Xbox One codes or the Xbox Series X codes are way too long, way too much. I think PlayStation's got it right with the 12 digits. Xbox is like a Bible verse you got to type in there. But I really enjoyed just getting these smaller games. They felt exciting. They felt fresh. They felt new. It was a really cool time in video games, and it's one that has faded away because indie games, I think to say it's an indie game, like, yes, it's an independently released game, so it's kind of an indie game, but there's so many of them, and so many of them are of a polish and of a level as AAA titles that those lines have blurred so much. These games back then, they had a little bit of jank, but it was like in an endearing way, like, that kind of thing. So it's sad to see it go to a close, and it's also a sad blow for video game preservation. I'm hoping that people will be able to do what they did with the 3DS store, which is kind of the last major video game marketplace to shut down, and try and rip some of these things and get these games out and available. I hope that there's a bigger push for Xenia, which is the 360 emulator, the main one, and get that, get compatibility up and running for all these things. So hopefully it all comes together and these games aren't lost to time, because there's some very special games out there. So the next one I'm not going to spend a ton of time on because it's old news at this point. Like I said, I was kind of combining news from the past couple of weeks, this week and also the week that I took off. But Modern Warfare 3 has now finally been announced. We've got a release date. It's coming out in November, specifically November 10th. It does look like there's going to be some early access, which happened with the last game where you pre-order, you got access to the campaign a week in advance. You can kind of get the campaign out of the way and then just jump right into multiplayer when it comes out, which I think is good. I think it gives, they put so much time and effort into the campaign, and a lot of people just never touch it. They want to get into their multiplayer, but you give it to them a week early. People actually play through it. They do. Last year, they did give you some stuff for unlock if you play through the campaign, so I think it's good. The thing that's really bizarre about this is the reports coming out saying that all 16 launch maps from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 will feature in the game, but I have then heard conflicting reports that it's not all 16, it's more like 10. But it's so bizarre because it would have made sense to put those in Modern Warfare 2 last year, and instead they're going to be in Modern Warfare 3. It's just, I don't know, there's just this disconnect in my brain where that is just such an odd thing, right? Like, it's just so, it just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't feel right. But, that is my favorite Call of Duty of all time. So, I've gone on record several times on this channel by saying that I am not thrilled with the way they handled this situation. We were promised 2 years of Modern Warfare 2. We get the 1 year. That game had terrible maps. It did not age well, and it's been out for less than a year. It's still fun to play, I guess, but it's a very disappointing game, considering that the first Modern Warfare reboot in 2019 was, it turned the franchise around, really. So I hope Modern Warfare 3 is a complete package. I will get it. I'll get it. We'll have it on day one. So, we'll be playing it here on the channel, and I'll be playing it at my personal time. It's one of my favorite things to do around the holidays. I very much equate Thanksgiving time with Modern Warfare, getting a little bit of time off for work maybe, and just having those long night multiplayer sessions. I still enjoy doing that, and it's going to be cool to play on those Modern Warfare 2 maps, even if it's not all of them. I want Favela. That's kind of my main one there. It's my favorite map for Modern Warfare 2. There are some other good ones as well. Arab always was pretty fun. The only one that I never really liked, I guess it was okay for Search and Destroy, was the one that had like the tunnels underground, the wooden tunnels, and it was just kind of like a wasteland out. I think maybe it was just called Wasteland. That one wasn't my favorite, but I'm sure I would still enjoy playing through it. But yeah, I don't know. It sucks. I feel like I'm begrudgingly giving them my money, but it is what it is. I'm a sucker for Call of Duty. All right, next up was some kind of, sad news, I guess, is Charles Martinet is stepping back from his role as Mario. He has been the voice of Mario for a very long time, since the 90s. He did not voice the character in the Mario Brothers movie, which I support, and I know some people didn't like that, but his very, high-pitched, quippy, bad Italian accent, it's a me Mario stuff was not going to fly in an hour and a half movie. You would have been gouging out your ears listening to that for an hour and a half. And I think that I like Chris Pratt as an actor. I thought he was fine. I thought the whole voice cast, for the most part, was fine. I think Seth Rogen phoned it in a little bit, but I think everybody was pretty good. So Charles Martinet is transitioning to a role as Mario ambassador. He'll travel the world sharing the joy of Mario, as per a statement from Nintendo of America. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I think he has a contract where he has to get paid if they reuse any of his voice lines. I think Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the last game. Oh, no, it is not. I'm sorry. He does not voice Mario in the upcoming game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So I'm assuming they got to sound alike. I think that is the definitive video game Mario voice at this point. I think it would be silly to try and do what they do with the movie, especially, there's going to be a sequel to that movie. It made $1 billion. Keep those separate. I don't think we need a Mario doing full blown voice dialogue or anything like that, because I don't think you're gonna get Chris Pratt to come in and do the video game. So what are you gonna do? Get a Chris Pratt sound alike? It's gonna be easier for a talented voice actor to do a Charles Martinet sound alike than it is gonna be a Chris Pratt Mario sound alike. So I think that's a fine way to go about doing it. Charles is getting up there in age a little bit. You can only go for so long, and his your voice only holds out for so long. I was watching. I very rarely do this, but I was watching some modern Simpsons recently, because I heard the last 2 seasons actually haven't been that bad. The most recent season's not up on Disney Plus yet, but I watched the previous season, so I'm assuming this is the season from 2022 or maybe 2021. And I actually enjoyed some of the episodes. I actually thought they were perfectly fine. But man, Marge's voice, oh man, that is rough sounding. Like, I think they're at the point where maybe they need to replace the actor for Marge. I mean, she sounds like she's just a couple dozen packs of cigarettes a day. It is pretty bad. Bart's getting tough too. Is Nancy Cartwright is Bart, right? And she did a lot of like press and publicity on YouTube, making the rounds like Wired and stuff like that, doing those videos where like actors react to their roles and all that stuff and break things down. And, she's an older woman, and, she has the voice of an older woman, and trying to still voice a prepubescent boy, it's not, you're not going to be able to do it forever. So I understand if, maybe it's just Charles wants to retire and kind of go on, or I don't know, maybe Nintendo did force him out, who knows? I assume if they did force him out, he probably wouldn't be staying on for this ambassador role, or maybe he does the ambassador thing for like 6 months to a year and is like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm just going to retire. Who knows? I'm just banging things all over the place. But yeah, definitely an end of an era, for sure. And, I hope he, does well in whatever he is, wherever he's going to get up to next, and has fun flying all over the world. So I know we'll find out who the mystery Mario person is maybe once we get the credits for Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Well, I guess we can make the official announcement here. I am the new voice of Mario.
No, you're not.
It's me, the plumber.
Yeah, they're not going to allow you anywhere near Nintendo. No way. No, it's not happening. All right, a couple more things to get through. So Microsoft continues to go its 300 round boxing match with the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority over in England, to try and get this Activision Blizzard thing pushed through. They've announced their kind of their way they are going to do that, and that is going to be the acquisition of Microsoft, or their acquisition of Activision Blizzard is going to hopefully be pushed through, because they have agreed to sell the cloud streaming rights to Ubisoft. So Ubisoft has their own kind of streaming service similar to a Game Pass, Ubisoft Plus, although I think they have actually changed the name of it. Does it say in here? The last I knew was Ubisoft Plus, but maybe it is, maybe it still is. I don't know. It's their version of Game Pass, but it's just Ubisoft published stuff. So, your Watch Dogs and your Assassin's Creeds and all that stuff. I've only had it, I had it for like 2 months at one point. I wanted to play one of the Anno games, and they put those out. And then also when Watch Dogs Legions came out, I got my copy through Ubisoft Plus. So this is their way to do it. Now, remember that this is these cloud streaming rights. So you can't go onto this Ubisoft app and download these games. You can only stream them. The only way to download them would be as if, you could do it through Game Pass. But it does say that this is going to be all current and new Activision Blizzard PC and console games released over the next 15 years to Ubisoft. So that means Diablo 4. They said Diablo 4 was not going to be on Game Pass, but apparently you will be able to stream it via the cloud through Ubisoft's app. So it's kind of they're kind of showing their willingness to sacrifice it away. I don't know. But they're hoping that this is going to wrap things up. They want the review process to be done before the 90-day extension that they recently signed to try and get this all figured out. That 90-day extension ends on October 18th. So I'm filming this on August 26th, so less than 2 months away to try and figure all this stuff out. I assume this is probably going to be enough to to push things through. But we shall see, I guess. They're kind of the last holdout. I think every other country's regulatory bodies for this stuff have agreed and everything's all good to go, except for the United Kingdom. So I don't know. It seems silly to me. I don't really think that Microsoft having the exclusivity to Activision Blizzard stuff is going to change video games all that much. If anything, it'll just make Sony step up and, maybe not rely so much on the single player stuff, which, I hope they don't go that route, because that stuff does sell. There's a reason they don't put those games out on PlayStation Plus day one like Microsoft does for the Game Pass stuff. It's because they still can sell those games. So I hope they don't make any change there or decrease their production on those games. They are definitely ramping up their free-to-play stuff and their multiplayer experiences and all that. All right. Last story. Sony has finally announced what their Project Q thing is, and it is called PlayStation Portal, and it's going to be $200.
I've been sucked deep into some portals before, let me tell you.
I don't want to know about your portals, man. This is, essentially looks like the PlayStation 5 controller cut in the middle, a la the GameCube keyboard controller for Phantasy Star. There's a big screen in the middle, and you will be able to play your PlayStation 5 games on it. PlayStation, in a blog post, said that the Portal is the perfect device for gamers and households where they might need to share their living room TV or simply want to play PlayStation 5 games in another room of the house. So the Portal is going to connect remotely to your PS5 over Wi-Fi, so you can jump from playing on your PS5 to your PlayStation Portal. You can play supported games that are installed on your PS5 console and use the DualSense controller. So the thing to keep in mind with this, it is a remote play device only. You cannot stream games to this on PlayStation Plus. You need to own a PlayStation 5. You cannot do anything without it. You have to use your own PS5 games to stream. If you want to use your own PS5 to stream games via PlayStation Plus Premium and then play those games on the Portal, you cannot do that. So you cannot play your PlayStation Plus Premium games on this. You cannot use any PSVR 2 games that require the headset. Games that are streamed through PlayStation Plus Premium Cloud Service, not supported. So there's a lot of stuff that's not supported. It's basically just your regular run-of-the-mill PS5 games. That's what you can do, but it's streaming only. You can't download them anywhere. You got to have your PS5 on and running to be able to do all this. And I don't know, $200 to do that. And you can't take it anywhere. You can't take it on the go unless you have your PS5 running with you. So you can't play this on the bus. You can't play this on an airplane. You can play it in a hotel, I guess, but at that point, you hook the system up to a TV. I don't know. I don't really know who this is for and who this is intended to get, but it is a little strange to me, at least. But I don't know. We'll see, I guess. I mean, it's not anything I'm going to buy, especially for $200. I'm sure it's going to look nice, and the controller is fine. I prefer the Xbox controller, but the PlayStation 5 controller is perfectly fine. It looks like it's made like you would assume. It's kind of like it looks like a Switch essentially. It just kind of a hybrid of a PS5 controller and a Switch. Nothing too out of the ordinary design wise, but yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there are people that are going to think that this is great. Maybe they have roommates that want to watch TV and they want to play their games or whatever it may be. I don't know. But at that point, I would think maybe you would have a TV in your room or something. You could play it on the TV. I don't know. It's bizarre, but hopefully, I don't know, hopefully it sells for them, I guess. I don't know. PlayStation VR 2 didn't sell very well, but, they also didn't really make any games for that thing and didn't really port over a lot of games from the first PlayStation VR. So Sony's doing some weird stuff. So, Sony, what do you, just you and me talking right now, what are you doing over there? What are you up to? I'd like to know. I have questions. I have concerns. I have thoughts. But yeah, that's going to wrap up the news. So the last thing I guess we'll get into is what's going to happen on the channel this week, because it's going to be a busy week on the channel this week. All right. So, between Monday, well, you're seeing this on Monday. So between Tuesday and Thursday, there'll be at least one video. I think I'm going to try and play some of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk and get that up there. And try and get a look at that. I was going to try and get a look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I planned to put that out last week, but I made the mistake, or maybe it wasn't a mistake, of watching other people play it, and I realized very quickly that it was not a game that I wanted to play. I was not going to enjoy it, and I'm glad that I saw that. I enjoyed watching other people play it, but I knew from watching it that that was not going to be something that I wanted to play. So I kind of struck that off the list. So Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, I want to get a look at BlazBlue Entropy Effect, which is like a roguelite side-scrolling Castlevania-ish with the BlazBlue characters. BlazBlue's a fighting game franchise. So I want to try and get that up. So maybe we'll try and get Bomb Rush Cyberpunk up, and maybe we'll try and get BlazBlue Entropy Effect up on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm not positive. I'm not going to make any promises, but I will have at least something. If not those, a couple of shorts or whatever. There will be stuff up. But Starfield is kind of the no pun intended star of the show this week. It is my most anticipated game for quite some time. I've been talking about it ad nauseum on this channel, how excited I am to get into it and to check it out. And it is finally coming out. So here are the plans. So the game comes out my time Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to start streaming on the channel at 8 p.m. I don't know how long I'm going to stream for. It'll be longer than a typical stream. I usually stream for about an hour. We will go longer than that, but I want to put that caveat out there that I can only stream for so long. It's not because I don't want to, or I don't have the interest in doing that, but I got a lot of metal in my back from surgeries, and I can only sit for so long, especially sit kind of hunched forward looking at a screen right in front of me. So I'd like to try and we'll get through the character creation, get out into the world and play the game for a couple hours, I think is my goal. And then when the stream ends, I'm sure I'm going to keep playing on my own personal time that night. The next day on Friday, I took the day off from work because initially they didn't say that you could play the game on Thursday. It was going to be on Friday. So my plan initially was to just get up bright and early on Friday and just start streaming, throughout the day. But we don't have to do that now because it's coming out the night before. So I will also be streaming the game on Friday, probably during the middle of the day. Around lunchtime-ish, early afternoon is probably when I'm going to go live. And I'm just going to kind of keep playing the game in my own time. Next week's episode is going to be, I'm sure, a lot about Starfield. We were hoping to have Davis on the show next week, but Davis has to go out of town, so we won't have him next week, but he'll be around the week after that. And, I know he really wants to get into his thoughts on Armored Core and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, so we'll be able to kind of share some thoughts on that, because by then both of us will have played both of those games. I don't think he's going to be playing Starfield. Maybe he will, and he can, we'll talk about our thoughts on that. But yeah, it's going to be very Starfield centric. So yeah, all streaming coming up over the next probably couple of weeks is all going to be Starfield related. So I am very much looking forward to. I'm looking forward to Thursday night. Like as soon as it goes live, we'll be up and running, and we'll make our character, and we'll get out into that world and see what they have to show us. And I haven't been this excited about a game in a long time, and it sounds like what little has eked out, because obviously everybody that's reviewing the game is under pretty strict NDA. It's Thursday morning, I believe, or I think it's Thursday at noon. Is when all the reviews can come out, and you're going to see a deluge of videos and all of that happening. People streaming the game and all that, and I don't know. I don't know how much of that I'm going to engage in. I think I will probably read like IGN's review, and just kind of browse through it at that, because I don't want to spoil anything. The one that I am really looking forward to is Paris's review from Kinda Funny Games. I want to see what that is, but I am not going to touch that review in that video from them with a 10-foot pole until maybe Sunday next week, when I have had plenty of time to play the game, because I don't want to get spoiled on anything. I want to try and get, enough to know that, like, oh, maybe what they're going to talk about here is a spoiler, and I can fast forward a little bit. But yeah, I took next Friday off, and I have the following Monday off because it's a holiday here. And I'm just going to spend as much time as I can with that game, as I'm really looking forward to it. But that's going to wrap things up for this week. Thank you, as always, for checking out the show. Christian, do you have anything to add before we go?
Yeah, I can't wait to be forced to watch hours and hours of you wandering around outer space, totally lost, unable to figure out the most basic video game mechanics. For someone who doesn't shut up about this stuff, you're terrible at it.
Yeah, I never claimed to be a professional gamer, man. I'm not good. I like to push the buttons. All right, that's going to do it for me. Take it easy, everybody, and we'll see you again real soon.